I discovered my husband's betrayal through a message he forgot to delete. The message was only 7 words long, but it changed the way I understood the last 11 years of my life. I miss waking up beside you. I found it at 11:43 on a Tuesday night in our kitchen in Seattle, while my husband was asleep upstairs and the rain tapped softly against the windows. For a few seconds, I simply stared at the screen. Then I read it again. And again. The message wasn't meant for me. It had been sent to my husband Daniel by someone saved in his phone as Megan designed the name looked ordinary enough. The message didn't. I stood barefoot on the cold kitchen floor, holding his phone in both hands, feeling as if the walls around me had shifted several inches. Daniel had left his phone on the counter while he took a shower. He had asked me to plug it in because the battery was almost dead. That was all. I wasn't searching through it. I wasn't suspicious. Not yet. I had only picked it up to connect the charger. Then the screen lit up. The preview appeared before I could look away. I miss waking up beside you. There was no heart emoji, no flirtatious nickname, no obvious confession. Somehow, that made it worse. It sounded intimate in a way that suggested history, familiarity, a life that had already existed somewhere outside our marriage. I looked toward the stairs. The shower was still running. For 11 years, Daniel had slept beside me. For 11 years, I had believed that being the person someone woke up next to meant something permanent. I had been wrong. My name is Claire Bennett. I was 38 years old, and until that night, I thought I knew the shape of my life. I had a husband, a small gray house in the Ballard neighborhood, a demanding job as a project coordinator for an architecture firm, and a collection of ordinary routines that made me feel safe. Saturday mornings at the farmer's market. Coffee from the cafe on Market Street. Dinner in front of the television when neither of us had the energy to cook. A shared grocery list on the refrigerator. Nothing about our life looked dramatic from the outside. That was part of what made the truth so difficult to recognize. Betrayal rarely arrives with a slammed door or a suitcase on the front porch. Sometimes it hides in small changes. A phone turned face down, a password changed. A husband who suddenly begins showering the moment he gets home. A person who says he is tired, then spends an hour smiling at someone else through a screen. The first sign had appeared 6 months earlier. Daniel had started working late. He was a senior project manager at a commercial design firm downtown. Long hours were not unusual, especially when a deadline approached. I understood that. His work had always been demanding, and I had never wanted to be the wife who complained every time he stayed at the office. At first, his late nights seemed temporary. Then, they became routine. He began leaving the house before 7 in the morning and returning after 9. His explanations were always reasonable. A client had requested changes. The construction team had made a mistake. A presentation had to be finished. Someone had forgotten to send an important file. Whenever I asked how his day had gone, he gave me a tired smile and said, "It was a mess." I believed him because believing him was easier than wondering why he no longer seemed happy to come home. Our conversations became shorter. "How was your day? Busy? Did you eat? Something at the office? Are you coming to bed?" Not yet. There were no dramatic arguments. No obvious cruelty, just a slow disappearance of warmth. Daniel had always kissed me when he came home. Even if it was late, even if he was distracted, he would place one hand on my waist and press his lips to my forehead. Then one evening, he walked past me without saying anything. I was standing in the kitchen, stirring soup. He dropped his keys into the bowl by the door and went directly upstairs. "Hi," I called. He paused on the stairs. "Hey, you're home early. It's almost 8, Claire." I looked at the clock. "I know. I meant earlier than usual." He turned around slowly. His expression was tired, but there was something else beneath it. Irritation. "Can we not do this tonight?" "Do what?" "Analyze the exact time I walked through the door." I lowered the spoon. I wasn't analyzing anything. "Fine." He continued upstairs. The soup burned while I stood there, listening to his footsteps disappear. That night, I told myself he was stressed. I told myself he needed rest. I told myself marriage had seasons, and maybe this was simply a difficult one. The explanations came easily because I had spent most of my adult life trying to be understanding. I was the person who remembered birthdays, scheduled dentist appointments, replaced the furnace filter, and kept extra batteries in the kitchen drawer. I anticipated problems before they happened. I knew which restaurants made Daniel's stomach hurt, and which shirts he preferred for important meetings. I had built an identity around being dependable. The problem with being dependable is that people sometimes start treating your strength like an endless resource. Daniel assumed I would be there. He assumed I would understand. He assumed I would forgive him before I even knew what he had done. The night I found the message, the phone remained in my hands for almost a minute. I knew I should put it down. I knew reading further would cross a line, but another message appeared beneath the first. "You said you were going to tell her." My throat tightened. The shower stopped upstairs. I unlocked the phone. I knew Daniel's passcode because it was the date we had bought our house. The date was printed on a framed photograph in our hallway. I had never needed to hide my access to his life, so I had never questioned whether he hid his from me. The conversation with Megan stretched back for months. At first, the messages were harmless. Questions about work, comments about clients, complaints about meetings. Then the tone changed. "I wish you were here. You looked beautiful today. I can't stop thinking about last night." I stopped breathing. My fingers began to shake so violently that I nearly dropped the phone. There were photographs, but I didn't open them. I didn't need to. The words had already built the room around me. "Last night. Beautiful, wish you were here." Daniel came downstairs wearing a t-shirt and gray sweatpants. His hair was damp. He was humming quietly until he saw me standing beside the counter. His expression changed instantly. "Claire?" I held out the phone. "Who is Megan?" The room went silent. Rain slid down the window behind him. Somewhere outside, a car passed over the wet street. Daniel looked at the phone, then at me. For one terrible second, he didn't deny anything. That pause told me more than any confession could have. "Give me the phone," he said. I laughed once, but there was no humor in it. "That's what you're worried about?" "Claire, you went through my phone. You left it on the counter. That doesn't give you the right to read my private messages." I stared at him. "Private messages?" He looked away. The betrayal had already happened, but hearing him defend his privacy while standing in the ruins of our marriage made something inside me go numb. "How long?" I asked. "It's not what you think. That's not an answer." "Claire, please, how long?" He rubbed both hands over his face. "I don't know." "You don't know?" "It started a few months ago." "A few months?" It wasn't supposed to happen. I could barely hear him over the pounding in my ears. "What wasn't supposed to happen?" He didn't answer. I looked at the phone again. The conversation was still open. Megan had sent another message. "You can't keep pretending everything is fine at home." I turned the screen toward him. Is that what you told her? That everything was fine here? Claire, did you tell her you loved me? His jaw tightened. I never said that. The words went through me with more force than a shout. Not because he had cheated. Because he had made sure she knew he didn't love me. I put the phone on the counter. Are you sleeping with her? Daniel closed his eyes. That was his answer. I walked past him without saying another word. I went upstairs to our bedroom, opened the closet, and pulled a suitcase from the shelf. My hands moved without direction. A sweater, jeans, underwear, a toothbrush. I didn't know where I was going. I only knew I could not sleep beside him. Daniel stood in the bedroom doorway. Where are you going? Somewhere else. Claire, it's raining. I looked at him. Good. He flinched. It was the first time in months that my pain seemed to reach him. I'm sorry, he said. I folded a sweater and placed it in the suitcase. You should be. I didn't plan this. No one plans to be caught. His face hardened. That's unfair. I turned toward him. Unfair? He said nothing. I closed the suitcase. For a moment, we stood facing each other in the room where we had once planned our future. The walls held framed photographs from vacations, weddings, holidays, and ordinary Sundays. In every picture, Daniel was smiling beside me. I wondered when the smile had become an act. I need space, I said. You can't drive like this. I'm not asking permission. That sentence surprised both of us. I took my coat and walked downstairs. Daniel followed me to the front door. Where will you go? To my sister's. My older sister, Natalie, lived in Tacoma with her wife and their 2 children. We had always been close, but I had avoided telling her how distant my marriage had become. I didn't want anyone to worry. I didn't want to admit that something was wrong. I didn't want to be the woman whose husband had chosen someone else. At the front door, Daniel reached for my arm. I pulled away. His hand fell to his side. Claire, please don't leave like this. I looked at him for a long time. How else should I leave? He didn't have an answer. I drove south through the rain with both hands locked around the steering wheel. The windshield wipers moved back and forth, clearing the glass just long enough for the road to become visible again. I kept thinking about the message. I miss waking up beside you. It was not the sentence itself that destroyed me. It was the image behind it. Daniel waking up somewhere else. Daniel reaching for someone who wasn't me. Daniel building an intimate routine with another woman while I slept alone in our house, believing he was working late. When I arrived at Natalie's house, it was after midnight. She opened the door before I knocked. One look at my face was enough. What happened? I stepped inside. For several seconds, I couldn't speak. Then I said, Daniel is having an affair. Natalie didn't ask how I knew. She didn't ask whether I was sure. She simply pulled me into her arms. I stood there, shaking against her shoulder. I'm sorry, she whispered. I feel stupid. You're not stupid. I didn't see it. You trusted your husband. That was stupid. No, she said firmly. That was marriage. I slept in the guest room, but I barely rested. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the messages. I imagined the places Daniel and Megan had been together. Restaurants I had never heard of. Hotel rooms. His car parked somewhere downtown. By morning, I had convinced myself of something worse. Maybe Megan was not the beginning. Maybe she was simply the latest person. I returned home 2 days later because I needed clothes, medication, and the courage to see what remained of my life. Daniel was waiting in the kitchen. He had cleaned the house. The counters were spotless. The dishes had been put away. There was fresh coffee in the pot. The effort was almost insulting. You didn't have to do that, I said. I wanted to make things easier. You should have wanted to make things honest. He looked down. I'm sorry, you said that already. I don't know what else to say. That's convenient. He took a step toward me. I ended it with her. I felt something tighten in my chest. When? The night you found out. So you only ended it because you were caught. That isn't fair. You keep saying that. Because it isn't. I placed my bag on the floor. Tell me the truth. I have. No, you've given me the version that makes you look the least guilty. He sat down at the kitchen table, the same table where we had paid bills, opened Christmas presents, and planned vacations. It started in March, he said. I remained standing. Megan joined the firm last year. We worked together on the Fremont project. At first, it was just conversations. You were attracted to her. Yes, the honesty made me feel sick. When did you sleep with her? In June. Once? He hesitated. No, how many times? Claire, I don't think counting them will help. I stared at him. It will help me understand how many times you chose to lie. His mouth opened, then closed. 7, he said finally. I gripped the edge of the counter. 7 times. 7 separate moments when he could have stopped. 7 mornings when he kissed me, went to work, and returned to the woman he claimed he had not planned to betray me with. Did you love her? No. Did you tell her you didn't love me? Daniel looked away. Sometimes, the word cut deeper than the number. I walked to the living room and looked around. Our house had always felt like something we had created together. Now it seemed like evidence. Every piece of furniture carried a memory, and every memory had become uncertain. Did you bring her here? No. Did you ever want to? No. How do I know? You don't. It was the first honest thing he had said. I turned toward him. Do you still want to be married to me? He rose from the table. Yes, why? Because I love you. I almost smiled. Do you? Yes, then why did you make me feel invisible? He had no answer. The silence between us was not empty. It was filled with every unanswered question I had swallowed over the previous 6 months. The late nights. The hidden phone. The sudden interest in new clothes. The weekends he claimed to be too exhausted to leave the house, followed by mysterious energy whenever Megan sent a message. I remembered one Saturday in May when I had suggested we walk along the waterfront. Daniel had been sitting on the couch, scrolling through his phone. Maybe next weekend, he said. You said that last weekend. I'm tired, Claire. You're always tired with me. He had looked at me with annoyance. Can you stop making everything about us? At the time, I had apologized. I had gone for the walk alone. Now I understood that he had not been too tired for everything. He had been too tired for me. The humiliation of that realization was almost harder to bear than the affair itself. For the next 3 weeks, we lived in the same house like strangers. Daniel slept in the guest room. I slept with the bedroom door locked. He offered to share his location. He gave me access to his accounts. He said he would attend counseling. He deleted Megan's number in front of me. None of it restored trust. Trust did not disappear in one moment. It disappeared in layers. First, I stopped believing his explanations. Then, I stopped believing his apologies. Eventually, I stopped believing my own judgment. I questioned everything. Was he really at the office? Was he really meeting his brother? Was he really buying groceries? I hated the woman I became. I checked his phone when it buzzed. I studied his facial expressions. I looked for clues in his receipts and credit card statements. Each time I found nothing, I felt temporary relief. Then the relief turned into shame. I had never wanted to become suspicious. I had never imagined standing in a bathroom, searching through a husband's jacket pockets. One evening, Daniel came home while I was sitting at the kitchen table. "I made an appointment with a marriage counselor," he said. I didn't look up. "For when?" "Thursday. I'm not sure I want to go." "You said you wanted answers." "I wanted the truth." "That's different." He pulled out the chair across from me. "Can we try?" I looked at him. "Why?" "Because I don't want to lose you. You already lost me. You're asking if I want to pretend I'm still here." His eyes reddened. "I know I hurt you." "You don't know." "Then tell me." I laughed quietly. "You want me to explain the pain you caused so you can feel better about understanding it?" He looked down at the table. For a moment, I felt guilty. That was another habit I had to break. I had spent years protecting Daniel from the consequences of his own emotions. Whenever he was uncomfortable, I softened my words. Whenever he was upset, I reassured him. Even after he betrayed me, I was still worried about being too harsh. That night, I wrote 3 sentences in a notebook. I am not responsible for making this easy for him. His regret does not erase my pain. I am allowed to leave, even if he is sorry. I read them until the words stopped feeling like something I had borrowed from another person. The counseling sessions began anyway. The therapist's office was in a quiet building near Green Lake. Her name was Dr. Patel, and she had a calm voice that made it difficult to hide behind anger. During the first session, Daniel sat beside me with his hands clasped between his knees. Dr. Patel asked him why he had cheated. He spoke for several minutes about stress, loneliness, pressure at work, and feeling disconnected. I listened quietly. When he finished, Dr. Patel turned to me. "How does that explanation feel to you?" I looked at Daniel. It sounds like he is explaining why he was unhappy. "It doesn't explain why he lied," Dr. Patel nodded. "That distinction matters." Daniel shifted in his chair. I wasn't blaming Claire. "You may not intend to blame her," Dr. Patel said, "but if the explanation focuses mainly on what you lacked, it can sound as if the affair was a solution to a problem she created." Daniel looked away. For the first time, someone said aloud what I had felt but could not articulate. His betrayal had not been caused by my failure to be exciting enough, attentive enough, or beautiful enough. It had been caused by his choices. That did not make the marriage repairable. It simply meant I was not the reason it had broken. Still, I tried. I tried because we had been together since our 20s. I tried because we owned a home. I tried because our families loved us as a couple. I tried because leaving felt like admitting that 11 years had been wasted. But a life is not wasted simply because it ends. I did not understand that yet. At home, Daniel became careful. Too careful. He sent me messages during the day. "I'm leaving the office now. I'm stopping at the store. Do you need anything? I hope you slept okay." Every message felt like a performance. One afternoon, he texted that he was working late. 20 minutes later, I saw a photograph on the company's social media page from an office celebration. Daniel was standing near the bar with 2 coworkers. Megan was beside him. They were not touching. They were not smiling at each other. But Daniel had told me she was no longer involved in his work. He had promised to request a transfer to another project. When he came home, I showed him the photograph. "You said you weren't working with her." "I'm not assigned to her team." "You knew she would be there." "It was a company event. You could have told me. I didn't think it mattered. That is the problem. You keep deciding what I deserve to know." He took off his coat. "I didn't talk to her. That isn't enough. What do you want from me?" I looked at him. "I want you to understand that honesty is not something you offer only when it's convenient." He raised his voice. I am trying. So am I. No, you're not. You're waiting for me to fail. I went still. The accusation was unfair, but it revealed something important. Daniel wanted forgiveness more than he wanted accountability. He wanted the past to disappear before he had done the work of facing it. I'm not waiting for you to fail, I said. I'm watching what you do. He turned away. I packed another bag that night. This time, I didn't go to Natalie's. I rented a small furnished apartment in Capitol Hill for 1 month. It had a narrow balcony, a noisy refrigerator, and a view of a brick wall. It was not beautiful. It was mine. The first night there, I sat on the floor surrounded by unopened boxes and cried until my face hurt. Then, I ordered noodles from a restaurant downstairs. I ate them directly from the carton while sitting beside the window. It was the loneliest meal I had ever had. It was also the first meal in a long time that no one interrupted with an explanation. Living alone forced me to confront the parts of myself I had avoided. I had always thought independence meant not needing anyone. That definition had kept me ashamed of my needs. The truth was simpler. Independence meant being able to choose, even when I was afraid. I was afraid constantly. I was afraid of losing the house, afraid of being alone, afraid that I would never trust anyone again, afraid that Daniel would move on quickly while I remained trapped in the moment of discovery, afraid that people would judge me. At work, I hid behind deadlines. I answered emails, attended meetings, and pretended that my personal life had not exploded. My coworker Vanessa noticed anyway. We had worked together for 4 years, but we had never been close friends. I had kept the relationship professional. I rarely talked about private matters. One afternoon, she found me crying in a supply room. I had been trying to open a box of presentation boards when the tape refused to tear. Suddenly, the small struggle became unbearable. Vanessa stood in the doorway. Do you want company or privacy? I wiped my face. Privacy, she nodded. Then she placed a paper cup of coffee on the shelf beside me. Company is available if you change your mind. She left. I stared at the coffee for a long time. The next morning, I told her what had happened. She listened without interrupting. When I finished, she said, You don't have to decide everything this week. I feel like I do. Why? Because everyone keeps asking what we're going to do. Everyone can wait. I looked at her. What if I make the wrong choice? You already know what the wrong choice would be. I didn't answer. Staying somewhere that destroys you just because leaving is scary? She continued. That's not always loyalty. Her words stayed with me. A week later, I met with an attorney named Rachel Morgan. Natalie had recommended her after a friend used her during a divorce. Rachel's office overlooked Elliott Bay. She spoke clearly and never once made me feel embarrassed for asking basic questions. She explained our finances, the house, the accounts, and the legal process. Daniel and I had kept most of our money together. I had contributed to the mortgage even though he earned more. We had no children, but we had a dog named Milo, who had become confused by the separation and spent his days moving between the house and my apartment. When Rachel asked what I wanted, I said, I don't know. That's okay. I thought I would know by now. You don't have to decide whether to divorce before you understand your options. The word divorce made my stomach twist. For 11 years, it had been something other people did. Couples on television, neighbors who stopped appearing at block parties, friends of friends who changed their last names. Now it was attached to my life. I left Rachel's office with a folder in my bag and a headache behind my eyes. I didn't tell Daniel immediately. For the first time, I made a decision without asking how it would affect his feelings. That small act felt enormous. 3 days later, Daniel came to my apartment. He stood in the hallway holding a grocery bag. "I brought food," he said. "I didn't ask you to. I know, you've barely been eating." I looked at him. "How would you know? I still care about you. Caring about me would have included considering me before you slept with someone else." He lowered the bag. "Can I come in?" "No," his face fell. "I just want to talk." "We've talked. I want to tell you something." I almost closed the door, but something in his expression made me pause. "What?" "I found out Megan is pregnant." The hallway seemed to narrow around me. I stared at him. "What did you say?" "She's pregnant." "How far along?" "About 8 weeks." I gripped the edge of the door. Daniel looked terrified. For several seconds, neither of us spoke. Then I asked, "Is it yours?" "Yes," the word landed quietly. Somehow, it was more devastating than the messages. The affair had been a secret relationship. A period of selfishness. Something he could claim had ended. A child could not be deleted. A child would exist for the rest of his life. Daniel began to speak rapidly. "She told me yesterday. She says she's keeping the baby. I don't know what to do." I felt an unexpected calm settle over me. "You need to be a father. I know. You need to tell your family. I know. You need to stop asking me to rescue you from the consequences." He looked at me with panic. "Claire, this doesn't change how I feel about you. It changes everything. I can handle it. We can handle it." I shook my head. "No, you can handle the life you created." "What does that mean?" "It means you don't get to bring this into our marriage and ask me to carry it." He stepped closer. "I'm not asking you to raise a child. You're asking me to remain married to the man who fathered one with another woman. I love you. Maybe you do. But love is not the only requirement for a life together." He reached toward me. I closed the door. I stood with my back against it while he remained outside. He knocked once. "Claire," I said nothing. He knocked again. Then I heard his footsteps fade down the hall. The pregnancy changed the direction of everything. Before that day, I had still imagined reconciliation as a possibility. Painful, complicated, perhaps impossible, but still possible. Afterward, the future became clear. Daniel would have to maintain contact with Megan. He would attend appointments. He would be involved in the child's life. There would be phone calls, emergencies, birthdays, legal arrangements, and emotional complications. None of those things made Megan wrong for keeping her baby. None of them made the child responsible for Daniel's betrayal. But I did not want to build my future inside the consequences of a secret I had never agreed to. For days, I struggled with guilt. Was I abandoning Daniel when he was afraid? Was I punishing an innocent child? Was leaving selfish? Natalie helped me understand the difference. "You're not punishing anyone," she said during a phone call. "You're choosing what you can live with." What if people think I'm cruel? People don't have to live your life. What if Daniel really changes? He can change without you staying. That sentence gave me a strange kind of freedom. Daniel's transformation was no longer my responsibility. Neither was his recovery. I filed for divorce in October. The paperwork was less dramatic than I expected. There was no courtroom scene, no shouting, no final confrontation, just signatures, appointments, and conversations about property. The house was sold. The money was divided. Milo stayed with me because Daniel began traveling to meet with attorneys and prepare for the baby. Some people assumed that because there was no physical violence, leaving was an overreaction. A distant relative told me I should consider forgiving Daniel for the sake of our history. He made one terrible mistake, she said over the phone. One mistake doesn't last 7 times, I replied. She became quiet. Then she said, "You'll regret being so unforgiving." Maybe I would. The possibility frightened me. But forgiveness and reconciliation were not the same thing. I could release my anger without returning to the person who had caused it. I could wish Daniel peace without sharing my home with him. I could recognize his humanity without sacrificing mine. The legal process took 5 months. Those months were not a straight line toward healing. Some mornings I felt strong. I got dressed, went to work, walked Milo through Discovery Park, and made dinner. Other mornings I could not get out of bed. I missed Daniel in ways that embarrassed me. I missed his voice in the next room. I missed the way he used to rest his hand on my back while we watched television. I missed the person I believed he was. Grief did not care that he had hurt me. It did not ask whether he deserved to be missed. It simply arrived. One evening in November, I found myself sitting in my apartment bathroom, staring at the woman in the mirror. My hair was unwashed. My face looked older. I had stopped wearing makeup, not because I had decided I was comfortable without it, but because I no longer had the energy to care. I touched the reflection. "Who are you?" I whispered. The question frightened me. For years, I had answered it through other people. I was Daniel's wife. I was the person who kept the house running. I was the dependable one. Without those roles, I felt undefined. The next day, I called my mother. Our relationship had always been complicated. She loved me, but she believed marriage should survive almost anything. When I told her about the divorce, she reacted with disappointment. "You and Daniel seemed so happy." "We weren't. You should have tried harder." "I did." "You know men make mistakes. So do women." "That isn't what I meant." "I know." The conversation became tense, and we ended it quickly. For years, I had avoided disagreeing with my mother because I hated conflict. That night, I realized I could love someone and still refuse their judgment. It was another boundary. It was uncomfortable. It was necessary. In December, my job changed unexpectedly. The principal architect at our firm, Thomas Reed, asked me to coordinate a community housing project in South Seattle. It involved several organizations, city officials, contractors, and neighborhood groups. The project was larger than anything I had managed before. "I'm not sure I'm qualified," I told him. "You've been doing this work for 8 years. I've never led something this visible." "You're ready." "I don't feel ready." Most people don't. I accepted the project. At first, I worked too much. I stayed late, answered emails at midnight, and treated exhaustion like proof that I was moving forward. Then I made a mistake. I sent the wrong set of drawings to a contractor, delaying a meeting by 2 days. No one was injured, and the problem was corrected, but I cried in my car afterward. Vanessa sat beside me in the parking garage. "You're allowed to make mistakes," she said. "I know. You're acting like one error means everything is falling apart. It feels that way. Because you're still measuring your worth by how useful you are." I looked at her. She was right. I had survived my marriage by being useful. I had become indispensable because I was afraid that if I stopped giving, people would stop choosing me. That fear had followed me into my new life. I began seeing a therapist on my own. Her name was Alicia, and unlike couples counseling, the sessions were not about saving anything. They were about understanding me. We talked about the messages, but we also talked about childhood, fear, perfectionism, and the way I avoided difficult conversations until resentment became unbearable. I admitted that I had ignored signs because a part of me believed I could prevent betrayal by being a better wife. I admitted that I had been so afraid of abandonment that I abandoned myself first. That realization hurt. It also gave me something I had not had before: responsibility without shame. I had not caused Daniel's affair, but I was responsible for the years I spent silencing my own instincts. I began listening to them. I told people when I was tired. I declined invitations without inventing excuses. I stopped checking Daniel's social media. I stopped asking mutual friends what he was doing. I stopped trying to imagine Megan. For a while, the absence of information felt unbearable. Then, it became peaceful. The baby was born in May. Daniel sent me an email because he wanted to tell me before I heard through someone else. Her name is Lily. She's healthy. I read the message once. I did not respond. Not because I was angry at the baby. Because I was no longer part of that story. A week later, Daniel asked to meet. I considered refusing, but there were still legal documents to finalize regarding the house. We agreed to meet at a coffee shop near Pike Place Market. He looked different. Thinner, tired, older. For a moment, I saw the man I had married. Then I remembered the phone in my hands. He sat across from me. "How are you?" "Better," he nodded. "I'm glad." "Why did you want to meet?" "I wanted to apologize." "You've apologized." "I know. I want to do it without asking for anything." I studied him. He seemed sincere. That did not change the past. "I'm listening." He took a breath. I blamed my unhappiness on our marriage. I told myself I was lonely, but I didn't tell you. I wanted attention, and I liked feeling desired. I made choices that hurt you because I thought I could keep the consequences separate from my life. I said nothing. I lied to Megan too, he continued. I told her I would leave you. I never had the courage to do it. The words were difficult to hear, but they no longer had the power to control me. You should have told me before you promised her anything. I know. You should have left before sleeping with her. I know. You should have accepted that our marriage had problems without turning another person into a secret escape. I know. He looked down at his coffee. I lost everything. I felt the old urge to comfort him. It rose quickly, almost automatically. Then I let it pass. You lost the life you were willing to risk, I said. He looked up. That's fair. No, Daniel, it's simply true. He swallowed. How did you become so calm? I'm not always calm. You seem different. I am different. He stared at me for a moment. Do you ever think about coming back? No. The answer was gentle but firm. His eyes filled with tears. I thought you might say that. You need to accept it. I'm trying. Try for yourself, not for me. He nodded. We finished the coffee in silence. When we stood to leave, he said, I hope you find someone who treats you better. I hope you learn to treat people better. He looked hurt, but he did not argue. Outside, the air smelled of salt and rain. The market was crowded with tourists, vendors, and people carrying flowers. I walked away from the coffee shop without looking back. It was not a triumphant moment. There was no sudden feeling of victory. I simply felt lighter. Months passed. The community housing project became the most meaningful work I had ever done. The building would provide affordable apartments for families, seniors, and people transitioning out of shelters. The work was frustrating. Permits were delayed. Budgets changed. Meetings ran long. Some nights, I went home exhausted and angry. But the exhaustion belonged to something I had chosen. That made a difference. I began taking evening classes in urban planning at a local college. It was a goal I had abandoned years earlier because Daniel's career had seemed more important. and because I had convinced myself that starting over in my 30s was embarrassing. Now, I understood that embarrassment was temporary. Regret lasted longer. I also started painting again. When I was younger, I had loved watercolor. I used to spend Sunday afternoons painting buildings, trees, and ordinary streets. After I married Daniel, I slowly stopped. There was always something else to do. One Saturday, I bought a cheap set of paints and a stack of paper. My first painting was terrible. The lines were uneven. The colors ran together. The perspective was wrong. I kept it. It reminded me that I could make something imperfect and still allow it to exist. My mother eventually called. We had not spoken for nearly 2 months. "I'm sorry," she said. I sat at my kitchen table. "For what?" "For making you feel like you had to stay." I did not answer immediately. She continued, "I was afraid of what people would say. I thought if your marriage ended, it meant I had failed to teach you how to keep a family together. That wasn't your failure. I know that now." Her voice trembled. "Are you happy?" The question was complicated. "I'm becoming happy." She breathed out softly. "That sounds honest." "It is." Our relationship did not become perfect overnight. We still disagreed. She still gave advice I had not requested, but I no longer treated disagreement as a threat to love. That was another kind of freedom. By the time the divorce became final, I had moved into a small townhouse in West Seattle. It had white walls, hardwood floors, and a little garden in the back. I chose every piece of furniture myself. I painted the bedroom a warm green because I liked it. I bought a sofa that Daniel would have considered too expensive and a kitchen table that was too large for the room. I planted lavender near the steps. The house was not a symbol of becoming someone new. It was simply a place where I could hear my own thoughts. One evening, I found the old phone charger in a drawer. It was the same charger I had been holding the night I saw the message. I almost threw it away. Instead, I placed it in a box with other things I no longer needed: old receipts, a spare key, a wedding invitation, and a photograph from our honeymoon. I did not keep the box because I wanted to remember Daniel. I kept it because forgetting was not the same as healing. The past did not need to be destroyed to stop controlling me. I could look at it and say, "That happened." Then I could continue. A year after I found the message, I returned to the coffee shop near Pike Place Market. I had arranged to meet Vanessa after work. She had become one of my closest friends, and we were celebrating the approval of the housing project's final phase. As I waited, I noticed Daniel across the street. He was standing beside a stroller. For a moment, neither of us moved. He saw me and lifted one hand. I returned the gesture. He crossed the street slowly. "How are you?" he asked. "Good." He glanced at the ringless hand I had stopped hiding. "I heard the project is going well." "It is. That's great. How is Lily?" "She's wonderful." The answer was immediate and genuine. I smiled. "I'm glad." He looked at me carefully. "You seem happy." "I am." He nodded. "I'm happy for you." There was no bitterness in his voice. Maybe he meant it. Maybe he didn't. For once, I did not need to know. Vanessa appeared outside the cafe and saw us standing together. I introduced them briefly. Daniel shook her hand. "Claire talks about the housing project all the time." "She should," Vanessa said. "She worked hard for it." Daniel looked at me. "I know." The three of us stood there for a few seconds. Then I said, "We should go inside." Daniel stepped back. "I'll let you enjoy your evening." He turned toward the stroller. I watched him walk away, not with longing, not with anger, but with an understanding I had not possessed a year earlier. He was no longer the center of my story. He was a person from my past who had made choices I could not change. I had once believed that moving on meant finding someone new, becoming more beautiful, or proving that Daniel had made a mistake. Now I knew better. Moving on meant waking up without checking my phone for evidence. It meant trusting my instincts. It meant sitting alone in a quiet room and not interpreting the silence as rejection. It meant choosing a green bedroom because I liked green. It meant saying no without explaining myself for 20 minutes. It meant understanding that being loved by someone else was not the measure of my value. I never became fearless. Sometimes I still worried that a future partner might lie to me. Sometimes a notification sound made my stomach tense. Sometimes I remembered the kitchen floor, the cold beneath my feet, and the 7 words that had broken open my life. But the memory no longer felt like a sentence. It felt like a doorway. Through it, I had entered a life I never would have chosen, but one I eventually learned to build. A few years later, I met someone named Aaron at a community meeting connected to the housing project. He was a high school counselor who worked with teenagers facing homelessness. He was kind, patient, and remarkably ordinary. He did not rush me. He did not ask for access to every part of my life to prove he was trustworthy. He understood that trust was built through repeated actions, not dramatic promises. On our 4th date, I told him about Daniel. We were sitting in a small restaurant in West Seattle, and I expected him to become uncomfortable. Instead, he listened. When I finished, he asked, "What do you need from someone you're with?" I thought about the question. "Honesty," I said. He nodded. "Anything else?" "Respect, consistency, space to remain myself." "That sounds reasonable. It took me a long time to understand that." "I'm glad you do now." Our relationship developed slowly. There were no grand gestures, no promises that nothing would ever hurt, no attempts to erase the past. Aaron showed up when he said he would. He told me when his plans changed. He listened when I spoke. When we disagreed, he did not punish me with silence. The first time he left his phone on the table, I felt an old instinct rise. I looked away. He noticed. "What happened?" "Nothing. Are you sure?" I took a breath. I'm still learning that I don't have to investigate everyone I love. He reached across the table, but he did not touch me until I offered my hand. "You don't have to prove anything to me," he said. I believed him gradually. Not because he was perfect. Because he was consistent. That distinction mattered. I did not marry Aaron quickly. I did not move into his home after a few months. I did not abandon my routines to make room for him. I kept my townhouse. I kept my classes. I kept Sunday painting. When we eventually moved in together, we chose the place as equals. There were disagreements about furniture, storage, and which side of the closet belonged to whom. They were ordinary disagreements. I loved them. They reminded me that a healthy relationship did not require the disappearance of one person. It required 2 people willing to remain visible. Sometimes I think about the woman I was before the message. I don't hate her. She was trying to preserve a life she believed was safe. She thought love meant patience without limits. She believed being a good wife meant making herself easy to live with. She ignored her loneliness because she was afraid of what it might reveal. But she was also caring, loyal, hardworking, and hopeful. Those qualities did not make her weak. They simply needed boundaries. The message Daniel forgot to delete did not tell me everything at once. It opened a door, but I had to decide whether to walk through it. I had to face the truth, protect myself, and accept that the life I had planned was no longer available. The hardest part was not discovering that Daniel had betrayed me. The hardest part was discovering how long I had betrayed myself by accepting distance. Excuses, and emotional neglect because I was afraid of being alone. Leaving did not make me stronger overnight. It made room for strength to return. There were days when I needed help. There were days when I made bad decisions. There were days when I missed a man who had hurt me and felt ashamed of my own heart. Healing was not clean. It was not a staircase. It was more like walking through Seattle rain with no umbrella, getting soaked, finding shelter, and eventually realizing that the storm had not erased the road ahead. I learned that forgiveness does not require access. I learned that an apology is not the same as accountability. I learned that love without respect can become another form of loneliness. Most importantly, I learned that starting over is not proof that you failed. Sometimes it is proof that you finally believed yourself. Today, I still live in West Seattle. The lavender near the steps has grown taller than I expected. Milo is old now and sleeps most of the day, but he still follows me from room to room. The housing project is complete. Families live there. Children play in the courtyard. Every time I visit, I remember the woman who once sat on the floor of a strange apartment eating noodles from a carton, convinced her life was over. I wish I could go back and tell her that the pain would not disappear quickly. I would tell her that she would cry in grocery store aisles and forget why she had entered a room. I would tell her that she would question her worth. But I would also tell her that one day she would laugh without forcing it. She would make plans without checking whether anyone else approved. She would wake up in a home chosen by her, surrounded by objects that reflected her taste, her work, and her life. She would no longer be waiting for someone to choose her. She would choose herself, and that would be enough. If you were in Claire's place, would you have forgiven Daniel and tried to rebuild the marriage? Or would you have walked away after discovering the betrayal and the pregnancy? Share your thoughts in the comments, and if you feel comfortable, share your own experience. Don't forget to like the video and follow the channel for more emotional stories about healing, courage, and new beginnings.